Welcome, my fellow Scions. You know how in the movies there's always a villain that says we are not so different, you and I? That's me. When compared to you. You see, our parents don't get on. Inevitably, we will be arrayed against each other, forced to fight their proxy war, because they've been warring for an eternity, and I doubt it's going to stop just because we are on speaking terms right now. But we are on speaking terms right now, because fate is a fickle bitch, but springs back eventually. Until it springs back, it's malleable. You can stretch it out, you can contort it, you can shift it, you can play with it a little, and that's what we're doing here by being the best of chums. See, when Dad came to me last night and he said to me, "You must educate them, teach them about the world," he meant the world with a capital W, and he disappeared like a wisp in the night, as he so often does. But he clearly saw the value in ensuring other Scions were equipped to know about the world they live in. See, none of this is a mystery, not really. Even the ordinary, mundane, feeble-minded, rank-and-file humans and us exist in the same world. There's no veil between us. They know all about us. They know about our world, but they don't live it. They can't interact with it. They can't manipulate it like we can. And some of us are very skilled at the manipulation of reality. Oh, they may well know that the Aztec temple down the road is just as important to the people that worship there as the church 3 doors down is to the Christians who attend there every Sunday morning. But they don't know everything there is to know about Titans, about Terra Incognita, about the Pantheons, about we Scions and our powers. They don't understand. They just know that we're all part of the same world, and they've achieved some great things. After all, we couldn't have invented the nuclear bomb. I'm sure that was them. That was all them. I'm not taking the blame for that. And various other accomplishments. But we achieve legend. We create glory. We create realms of belief. A fantasy made real. And that to me is fantastic. It's amazing. It's part of the most wonderful thing about being a Scion. Being the child of a god has certain perks, I think it is fair to say. We have powers at our disposal that allow us to be slightly better at certain things than the humdrum mortal. Some of us may manipulate luck, some could start a fire with the snap of a finger and a thumb. Others could even cast down storms on their enemies or create great cracks in the ground. Of course, as we grow in power, we become more and more like our parents, and that's an interesting thing. Because some humans are going to see us as heroes. We are the kinds of people who can defy the elements, the environment, even men armed with machine guns, and make the world better for the people who aren't like us. Others can capitalize on their ignorance, their weakness. Those would, I suppose, be classified as villains, and, well, make our own lives better. Still, legends aren't really told about the latter. So, it is better, one could argue, to at least try to develop a cult of worship. At least that's how I see it. Anyhow, the gods are funny people. People, entities, powers, deities, our parents. Some like to push us around like pawns on a chessboard, very obsessed. Others like to watch as we go about our moment-to-moment existence. Very difficult for us when you want some personal time. Some, however, don't give a fig about what we do day to day, and it's only when we become demigods that they look down and they elbow one of their fellow gods in the ribs and say, "Look what my child was capable of achieving without any help." Of course, while that god may be smug and proud and think, "Well, my Hercules did a fantastic job," that demigod is thinking, "You never helped me, not once. You just put trials in my way, and now I am here to take your power." Yeah. that can cause bloody conflict, and has done many times in the past. Oh yes. So some gods are savvy to the fact, and when they see their children ascending in power, that's when it's time to bring the hammer down into the anvil and ensure that steady climb stops flat. So gods can be benevolent, they can be capricious, they can be malevolent, they can have all the facets of personality that we humans, scions, can, but they of course become more rigidly defined by their purviews, by Ares being a god of war, for instance. If you are the child of a god of war, it may well be that you feel more inclined to temper. It may be that you feel that conflict should be resolved with conflict, that disputes should be settled with a show of prowess. But just the same, a scion of Ares may well be the fantastically successful CEO of a company of tightly regimented employees who operate like a military, and he studies the markets like a tactician. That is still an effective child of Ares. What I have found is if you start trying to defy fate, start trying to defy your gods, you will find the world turns against you. The world with a capital W. Fate will array against you until you are forced to accept your mantle. That doesn't mean we have destinies. We're not guaranteed noble or ignominious ends. We're certainly not guaranteed to become gods. But we do create legends for ourselves. Some of these legends are likely to be stories of how Icarus flew too close to the sun. Others are going to be stories of how we struck down a dire beast that was opened up in a cave when some stupid mortal potholers went a bit too deep and dug into terra incognita. A pretty rare instance, I'll say, but it does happen. You see, terra incognita is that part of the world where belief in place and location of holy site starts bleeding into ours. It's where Camelot comes into existence, the mid-realm. It's where people might fly into the sky and find a kingdom in the clouds. It's where you may enter any number of the vast myriad of underworlds that exist beneath us, around us, and above us. You can embark on your own personal odyssey into terra incognita. And if you do, I suggest finding some scions to support you, because these locations can be quite hostile. But that doesn't say that the supernatural is restricted to these fantastical realms, of which there are many, and probably countless. Again, subject to belief, subject to myth, subject to word of mouth told around the campfire. Creatures, titans spawn, and aberrant offshoots of the gods exist in our world as well. You may have heard recently the Greek parliamentary tourist announcement of how various islands off the south coast had become infested with lamiae, and it was advised that tourists avoid them until some scions dealt with the problem. So again, we sometimes find our role forcibly as heroes. Other times we practice what we do to earn support, to earn worship, to earn favour. There's a lot of reasons one might embrace one's role as a scion, and it isn't necessarily all altruism. For instance, I've known many scions of gods of death, and one may assume that they all become morbid, ashen-faced, likely to keep the company of corpses and inanimate objects, but just as many realise the sheer importance of experiencing life. They know the tragedy, the pain, and the finality of death. Therefore, they encourage everyone around them to live their best possible life, so that they don't become quite as morbid as their parent. At least, that's sometimes the way it goes. So you may be a child of Amaterasu, or Tezcatlipoca, or Odin, or Hera, or whomever. You don't have to be them. You can still be your own person. Just be aware that your parent will occasionally give you a nudge and expect you to behave in a certain way. Oh, but it is a wonderful existence. When you think of what you could be, and when you realise what you are, that is fantastical, that is wonderful, that is godlike, it's divine. We are divine. To be a Scion, at least at first, is just to be an extraordinary mortal. But you can become so much more. You can shift the winds of belief around the city in which you live. You could carve out a swathe of the wilderness and make the trees come alive. You may believe that the planet Earth is part of a colossal tree. You may believe that it is riding on the back of a quadruped. You may believe that it is flat. Well, when your belief is so strong and when your followers believe it, in your reality, in your world, that tree is there. And you can take fellow Scions up its branches to meet the gods, or down its trunk to meet firbolgs and dwarves and whatnot. I can't say I'm an expert on the Aesir, the Norse gods. And that's the thing, all the gods exist. Every single one of them. Isn't that quite amazing? Isn't it amazing how one faith has not just driven out all the others in some monopoly? No, because people have imagination. And for as long as people have imagination, gods can play on it, prey on it, grow power from it. As Scions, when I am asked, what is our purpose? What do we do? There are so many legends you can create. So many treasures you can hunt, so many beasts you can slay, so many gods you can parley with, so many wars you can settle, so many wars you can start. Yes, you can focus on bettering the lives of the people around you, but you can also focus on elevating yourself. You can become more than the sum of your parts. Eventually you can become more than your parent, if they allow it. So, have a think on that. Have a think on what the world has to offer you. Because all of a sudden, as a Scion, aware of being one, you have a vast array of opportunities before you. I suggest you seize them, you capitalise on them. You enjoy the benefits of being the child of a god.